So Ken is a part of Team Rachel Strong, which started in 2018 when Ken's granddaughter Rachel was diagnosed with AML. Last year, Rachel Strong was the #1 friends and family team in Canada, having raised over $100,000, which is just insane. It's so amazing. And they passionately raised over $250,000 since 2018 for the LLSC in honor of this amazing little girl. I'll let Ken tell you more about her though. But Ken is now retired, but he has spent decades in the service of our community, including as a Deputy Director of Finance for the City of Vancouver. He's an avid golfer, motorcyclist, and a supporter of Light the Night. So he's now for 2 years been on our Executive Leadership Committee in Vancouver. And perhaps the best way to describe Ken is that he's one of those rare people that will drop whatever he's doing to help you anytime. Just phenomenal. He's a talented public speaker and fundraiser, and it's such an honor to have him here today to share his knowledge with everyone. So thank you so much for being here, Ken. I'm really looking forward to learning from you. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Erica. If I didn't know you were talking about me, I'd be impressed with what I just heard. I'm just a grandfather who gets very emotional about what's happened in my family, and what I hear from the other teams is incredible. Like the stories are great, and I want to just spend a few minutes to talk a little bit about the beautiful young lady you see on your screen. That's my granddaughter Rachel Spotsell. When she was 7, actually she was 8. In the fall of 2017, the family took a trip to Hawaii, and for 10 days with some other families, they just had a blast in the water and doing all the things that kids love to do. They came home on a Sunday night. Rachel didn't feel well. And by the end of the week, after seeing the doctor and being put on antibiotics, the following Saturday, so we're talking about 5 days, Rachel collapsed at home. She was rushed to Children's Hospital, where they determined that she had had a stroke, which was really quite amazing for a 7 or 8-year-old. Further tests showed very quickly that the cause of the strokes was acute myeloid leukemia, and in the short span of a week, Spotsell's family life was just turned upside down. And in fact, at the beginning, there was really no certainty that Rachel was going to survive because of her the brain issues and the leukemia, and the need to fight them both very quickly. So it was, Rachel spent 15 days in the ICU, where she suffered 2 more strokes during that time. She went through 6 months of chemotherapy, as well as physical and cognitive therapy to deal with the issues of the strokes. And the interesting thing about it was that for much of the time, Rachel was unable to understand where she was, what was going on with her, and she couldn't communicate verbally with her parents and her sister Haley. And so it was a very, very difficult time. Her mother Lauren had to take a leave from her job. She's a kindergarten teacher, to be at the hospital full time, and she and her husband Peter stayed alternate nights at the hospital with Rachel for 6 months. And at the same time, Peter was trying to run his business and keep Rachel's little sister Haley, to keep her life as normal as possible. And of course, the family was there to help as much as we could. But there was nothing normal about what was going on, obviously. Rachel did recover her motor skills. One morning, Lauren was at the hospital. Rachel was sitting on the edge of the bed, and she got up and walked across the room. And it was just a very remarkable and emotional thing. After 6 months, Rachel was declared to be in remission. The cancer seemed to have been gotten under control, and Lauren and Peter and Rachel and Haley began trying to put their lives back together. Unfortunately, AML is not a disease that is easily dealt with. It's insidious and it hides in your system and prepares to attack again at the first opportunity. And it was just 6 weeks after being declared in remission that Rachel was diagnosed. The AML had returned. And at that point, there was not a lot of optimism about Rachel's future, and the chemotherapy hadn't been successful. The doctors were prepared to try again, but believed that her best chance was a bone marrow transplant, which was still a very risky procedure for pediatric AML patients with a very low survival rate. But the doctors believed that Rachel, that was her best opportunity, and they began the search for a stem cell donor, looking for 100% match, which we never found. But her little sister Haley, who's in the picture here, sitting with Rachel on the airplane, and together in the hospital room, was a 50% match. So she stepped up and became the donor. So it was at this point in the middle of 2018 that Team Rachel Strong was actually born. If you could put on the next slide, if you like. And it was really kind of a very spontaneous thing that happened. But the family and friends came together one afternoon and arrived at Peter and Lauren's house and surprised them with a huge show of support. And if there's people who couldn't make it send videos. We even had one of the nurses who admitted Rachel to the Children's Hospital, and her husband send wishes by video. And Peter's the people who work for Peter at his business, we all came together, and that was the point at which Team Rachel Strong was really born. And we understood that there was a lot of work that needed to be done, that Rachel had certainly benefited from the research and the drug regimes and so on that were available, but there was a lot more that was necessary. And it was partly personal, because we knew Rachel's journey wasn't finished, and also because we knew there were so many others, people we had made contact with at the hospital. Rachel was in a cohort of 5 young children, all with AML, diagnosed within 3 months of each other, all who went through the same level of treatment. Anyway, that's where Team Rachel Strong came along, and we decided that LLSC and Light the Night was going to be our cause. Rachel became our hero and our inspiration. But it was the middle of the summer, and we had done nothing. We had not organized anything. So Lauren and I began the job of trying to put together a fundraising campaign, having no idea about what we might be able to achieve. But we scrambled, flew by the seat of our pants, and realized that in the first year, what we needed, the only way we were going to be able to be successful was just to do the ask. And I can't emphasize how strongly the ask works, how well it works, as we've heard from the other teams here. With the support of LLSC and a fair amount of work, a lot of work actually, we raised $90,000 in 6 weeks. Primarily just by going out to people and asking. And in the following 2 years, as Erica said, we've raised our total of about $250,000. And there's nobody who was more surprised than we were about what you could do. So our advice is to, first of all, develop a fundraising plan. It really is important to sit down and figure out why you're doing this, what it is your goals are. Write them down. Doesn't have to be fancy, but if you write them down, they become real, and they become shareable with your team. You have to be realistic about your time commitment as well. I know how much time are, oops, I'm getting terrible messages from my computer. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you, Ken.
I don't know what's going on. Can you still hear me, Erica?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
So be realistic about your time commitment. You know, you can spend a lot of time raising funds and doing a lot of things, but it's important for you to make that commitment so that you have the best chance of reaching your goals. Use your time to focus on things that get you to those goals. There are lots of ways to raise money, but the most effective things should consume most of your time. Take some time to identify your potential donor audience. You know, the audience is huge, and we've heard from the other teams, you know, kind of how they built their audience. Talk about, figure out how they like to be contacted, because there's lots of ways to do it. And be prepared to ask more than once. We do 3, major asks of our donors each year. Make them more than donors. I think it's important to make them part of your community, and I think the other teams, you know, made this point as well. You want to make them feel like they're part of something that they want to invest in, and be clear that this is not a one and done thing, that your commitment is long term. Develop a compelling story and a strategy to deliver it. Now, I spent a bit of time talking about Rachel and her journey, because it is a compelling story, and we were very, very fortunate, I guess, from a fundraising perspective, to have such a personal, emotional, inspirational story to tell. Use LLSC resources to help if you need it. It's incredible what the team at LLSC can support they can provide, and always make sure you tie your story to back to LLSC. Develop a communications plan. Think about very carefully about how you want to communicate with people. You need to engage them, but you don't want to wear them out. So, you know, as I said, we use 3 major communications, mostly by email, because our fundraising campaign is mostly just the ask. We use social media as teasers to draw people in, and it's been very successful using Facebook and Instagram, fairly simple things, to engage people. And we always ensure that every donor receives a personal thank you, and so on. So the last thing, it isn't over when it's over. The fundraising campaign, ours usually runs for maybe 2 months. But our campaign actually never ends, because we keep the enthusiasm alive by engaging donors all year round. We provide continual updates on how Rachel is doing, even if it's just meeting on the golf course, or having dinner with one of your donors or one of your friends. Peter does through his business, you know, keeps the people who are our donors engaged all year round. So that's really our story, and there's one more slide, because I think it's important for me to finish the story about Rachel. There's Haley up in the top left-hand corner. Her little sister, on the day she went in to donate her bone marrow, and Rachel getting ready to be transfused. The pictures at the bottom are 2 weeks after Rachel's bone marrow transplant. For our Light the Night walk in Vancouver, her mother and Rachel were at the window at the hospital. Supporting us as we walked in her honor. And lastly, just a picture of Rachel today. Like, she's just the most fabulous young lady, just, you know, still fighting through some cognitive and speech issues, but she's just a blast. Not out of the woods yet, but we're in this for the long run, and she will continue to be our inspiration. So anyway, thanks, Erica. Sorry about the emotion. This is really a very personal thing.
be sorry. It's so, we're so grateful to have you here and to have you share your story and Rachel's story. She's such an inspiration for our team, and what you do together is amazing. And yeah, we're looking forward to honoring Rachel again this year with Light the Night. So thanks, Ken, for your contribution.